I want to ask you about something specific, though, because I'm about to bring up something that makes some Christians squirm. I know that I tend to live almost exclusively in the future, personally. I have that habit. I'm thinking 20 years out every time I'm planning, and that doesn't always help your sense of angst. And so I practice what some people would call mindfulness to sort of maintain, center myself, find a sense of calm. And the minute I say things like center yourself or mindfulness, I know I'm freaking people out. I really am, because we're afraid that mindfulness is a concept lifted straight out of Eastern mysticism. And there are forms of it that really are. I mean, I'm leery of some forms of Eastern mysticism and so on because they're inappropriate for the Christian. But let's talk about mindfulness. Is there such a thing as Christian mindfulness? Is this appropriate for the Christian? Is it permissible for the Christian?
I think that everything of value ultimately stems back to God.
Right.
So everything that really matters to human health and, the benefits of health and the happiness in our existence would be ultimately traceable back to God and would have some kind of expression, I think, in Scripture.
Sure.
So I don't feel threatened by certain principles being developed and shared within a certain religious context, just because they're shared within that religious context, if they have their roots in Scripture. In other words, I don't disallow things just because another religion espouses them, because then what I'd be doing is I'd still be letting that religion dictate to me what I believe and what I don't. I'm just reacting to it instead of embracing it. But it's
a lot of religions say God is love. They're not wrong about that. They might be wrong about how they express it, but they're not wrong about the principle.
Nothing develops truth with the precision, the level of precision as I think Christianity, and the basic fundamental principles of Christianity are different than the other world religions as far as I'm concerned. But that doesn't mean that everything about those religions is wrong. So just because Buddha said something doesn't make it wrong. So mindfulness, as is practiced in the mainstream social sciences and counseling offices today, is taken from Buddhism. But the million-dollar question, which you just asked a minute ago, is it biblical? So what I've done is I've gone into basic, mindfulness practices as are practiced in, secular realm, and I've identified the aspects of it that are beneficial, that I would say are making a difference. You can have a certain kind of therapy where you do cartwheels, so do cognitive restructuring. Well, the cartwheels aren't helping, but the cognitive restructuring, well, then you package it as this certain kind of therapy. It's going to say it works, but it works because of what's right about it, not because of what's wrong about it. So I wanted to go into mindfulness and say, what's right about it? It may be packaged with some things that aren't helpful, but something is working. It's empirically validated over and over again. So number one, breathing. And we did that a minute ago. We talked about deep, slow breathing is generally used in any form of meditation, including mindfulness meditation. And I explained why that breathing is beneficial. And by the way, the pen of inspiration, a person who I believe was inspired, Ellen White, that students should be taught how to breathe. When you have to teach someone how to breathe, that implies that they don't already know how to breathe, right? So people have to be taught how to breathe. So one of the important features of mindfulness is focus. So we tend to always be distracted by something. And so we have notifications. We have people walking in the front door, our phone, our computer. It mimics fight or flight. So it makes it easier for us to feel anxious. So focus tends to help pare down those reactions and really is very calming. So that's another aspect of mindfulness that works. A third aspect is imagination, the recapturing of the imagination. I love this quote from the book Desire of Ages. It says, we should spend a thoughtful hour in contemplation of the life of Christ, especially the closing scenes. So God would like our imaginations to be recaptured from all of the things that distract it. That's another aspect of mindfulness that is very effective. And then finally, objectivity, the ability to observe what's happening without getting caught up in it. The ability to say, I notice that I'm anxious right now, without saying, I am an anxious person, I'm a nutcase, I'm going to go completely crazy. Seriously,
Although,
like the
no,
ability.
no, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I just recognized a little Boonstra in there. I
Yourself.
mean, that's me. Oh yeah, no, I'm in there, and it's easy to fall into a loop where you're starting to think, man, there's something wrong with me, and
That's
I guess I'm crazy. Yeah.
So we call that secondary disturbance, when you're disturbed and then you're disturbed about being disturbed. And so there's seriously.
Yeah.
Then there's
I know. I'm laughing because I live with it.
I'm trying to be serious. No, I'm kidding.
No, I know.
So
I know.
It's all right. There's two kinds of secondary disturbance. There's the moralistic, spiritual kind, where you say I'm failing because I'm anxious, and Christians aren't supposed to be anxious. And then there's the pathologizing kind, which says I'm going to die. I'm going to have a heart attack and I'm going to die from this anxiety. Right. So the point is that it's okay to have all of these intense emotions. We're made in the image of God. He's an emotionally complex being, and we are made in his image with emotional complexity and intensity. And so it's okay to have those emotions. But what mindfulness does is it backs off and it says, let me just observe these emotions from a distance. We see biblically that happening in Romans 7. Paul said, it's not I, it's sin that dwells in me. He's backing up from his temptation cycle and observing it. And that's one of the
most angst-ridden passages in the entire Bible in Romans 7. It's like, and this is the great apostle, and he's but you're right. He steps back suddenly and says, wait a minute, I see what's actually going on here.
Well, then he says that, but he resolves the anxiety at the end, because he says, I myself, with my mind, serve the law of God. I'm a committed Christian.
Right.
But with my flesh, the law of sin. So your emotions and your body is going to do things at times you don't want it to do. Learning to say it's doing its thing, and that's not who I am, is a really important tool. And it's really essentially at least part of what mindfulness is.
Right.
So I think that those things have been borrowed from the truth, been borrowed from God, been borrowed from Jesus, been borrowed from Scripture. Yeah.
I mean, if you find yourself riveting your mind on Shiva, you're probably doing this wrong. But if you're looking at the principles, they're there. And I'm thinking about Matthew 6. I know we just have minutes to go, but Matthew 6 is a go-to passage for me. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, do not worry about your life, what you'll eat or what you'll drink. He's forbidding me to worry about tomorrow. And it's the verse at the end that gets me. Honestly, it gets me. I struggle with this. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own thing. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. So I've got permission. Okay. All I can actually deal with is right now. And that is a degree of mindfulness. What is today? And so today is get the laundry done. Cook a meal for the family. Tomorrow will come and tomorrow will have its own problems. And I think and he spends all this time in that passage saying, would you look around you, look at the birds, look at the flowers, take a look at the world. Is God not in control? That seems to me to be Christian mindfulness.